If you're dealing with a narcissist, the first thing you need to understand is that they are not interacting with you in the same way you are engaging with them. You operate under the assumption that relationships are built on mutual respect, reciprocity, and understanding. That is the framework you bring because it allows for real human connection. But the narcissist doesn't see things that way. Their approach is completely different. They aren't interested in fairness or equality. They are focused on control. A narcissist's main aim in any interaction is to gain power, attention, and validation on their terms. If that means twisting the truth, they'll do it. If it means gaslighting you so you doubt your own thoughts or feelings, they won't hesitate. If it means eroding your confidence to make you more compliant and easier to influence, that is exactly what they will do. And they won't feel guilty about it. That's why they are so dangerous. Some people make the mistake of believing that if they are kind enough, patient enough, or explain themselves clearly, the narcissist will eventually change. But that is an illusion. A narcissist does not learn from reason, discussion, or moral arguments. They only learn through consequences. If you ignore this truth, you are setting yourself up for endless frustration, self-doubt, and emotional fatigue. So, what does noticing their tactics really look like in everyday life? First, it means paying attention to actions rather than words. Narcissists are skilled at saying exactly what you want to hear. They will promise change. They will pretend to feel sorry. They will even play the victim to keep you tangled in their web. But the real question is, what do their actions consistently show? If there is a repeated pattern of lies, manipulation, or disrespect, that is the reality regardless of what they say. Second, you need to understand that narcissists use certain psychological tricks to maintain control. One of the most harmful is gaslighting, making you question your own reality. They will deny things they've said even when you have proof. They will rewrite history, subtly changing the story until you find yourself apologizing for things you never did. The more you argue with them, the more control they gain because arguing puts you in a reactive position. You are responding to them, which means they are controlling the flow of the conversation. Another common tactic is intermittent reinforcement, switching between kindness and cruelty unpredictably. This works because it taps into the same psychological pattern as addiction. If someone is always cruel, you eventually detach. But when there are occasional moments of kindness, your mind starts chasing those rewards, hoping that if you just behave the right way, you'll get more good and less bad. This creates a toxic dependency where you remain in the relationship not because it is fulfilling, but because you are chasing fleeting moments of warmth that were really just another way to manipulate you. And then there is projection. The narcissist will accuse you of the things they themselves are guilty of. If they are dishonest, they will call you a liar. If they are unstable, they will claim you are the irrational one. This serves two purposes. First, it shifts focus away from their behavior. Second, it keeps you so busy defending yourself that you don't see the truth. Recognizing these tactics is not about becoming suspicious or paranoid. It is about clarity. It is about seeing through the illusions and understanding reality as it is. Once you see the game, you stop playing it. And when you stop playing, the narcissist loses their power over you. If you want to stop being controlled, manipulated, or drained, the first step is simple. See the narcissist for who they truly are, not for who you wish they were. Reality, as harsh as it can be, will always serve you better than comforting lies. One of the most damaging traps is seeking a narcissist's approval. And I don't just mean obvious efforts to impress them, I mean the subtle, almost unconscious ways you change yourself to avoid criticism, to get even a small acknowledgement, or to be treated with the respect you deserve. It's easy to fall into this trap because humans are wired for social reciprocity. We invest in relationships expecting our efforts to be recognized. We believe that if we explain ourselves, show loyalty, or demonstrate patience, eventually the narcissist will acknowledge it and change. But that moment never comes. Narcissists do not work on reciprocity. They see your efforts not as something to respect, but as proof that they control you. Every time you bend yourself to avoid their disapproval, you reinforce their dominance. Every time you wait for their validation, you give them power over your self-worth. And if you think there's a magic phrase or action that will finally make them see you for who you are wasting your energy. For them, the standards are always shifting. The moment you think you've done enough, they raise the bar to something you cannot reach. It's not about you. This is the key realization. Their inability to respect you is not a reflection of your value, but of their pathology. A narcissist's self-image is fragile, built on an illusion of superiority that must always be protected. They cannot admit being wrong because it would break that illusion. They cannot allow others to be truly seen or appreciated because it would mean giving up control. So they move through life manipulating, exploiting, and diminishing others because it is the only way they know how to keep up their false image. Once you understand this, the right response becomes obvious. You must detach emotionally, mentally, and wherever possible, physically. And that starts with one critical step. Stop seeking their approval in any form. That doesn't mean being rude. It doesn't mean retaliating. It means removing yourself from the psychological game they are trying to trap you in. In practical terms, it means no longer justifying yourself to them. Narcissists thrive on arguments because arguments make their opinions seem important. The moment you defend yourself, you have already lost because the discussion is now framed around their perception of you, not your own reality. Stop explaining yourself to someone who is only looking for ammunition. If they twist your words, let them. If they misrepresent your intentions, that's on them. Their perception is not your responsibility. It also means letting go of the need for closure. This is one of the hardest lessons. We want resolution, a final moment where the narcissist admits wrongdoing, apologizes, or gives us the justice we crave. But that will not happen. The more you chase it, the longer you remain trapped in their web. The only closure you can have is the one you give yourself, deciding to walk away, to stop engaging, and to accept that their recognition is not necessary for your self-worth. Most importantly, it means reclaiming your own validation. If you've spent years adjusting yourself to meet the expectations of someone who cannot value you, it's time to take that power back. Your worth is not dependent on someone else's approval. It is something you must claim yourself. The moment you do, the narcissist loses the power they had over you. The most radical defiance against a narcissist is simple. Stop needing them to see you. See yourself instead. One of the biggest mistakes is thinking that playing by the rules will protect you, that being fair, reasonable, and generous will make them reciprocate. That belief rests on a false idea that the narcissist values fairness, responds to reason, or even plays the same game you do. They do not. A narcissist operates under a completely different way of thinking. Most people, when they get into a conflict, whether it's a disagreement with a friend, a tense conversation with a partner, or even a work related dispute, assume there's some shared reality. They believe that if both sides honestly share their views, the truth will eventually come out and some resolution can be reached. But a narcissist isn't interested in resolution. Their focus is on control. This is why it's a mistake to think that being the bigger person, showing endless patience, or trying to always understand will lead to a breakthrough. It won't. To a narcissist, your willingness to explain yourself, justify your actions, or hope for a rational response is not a strength. It's a weakness. It shows them they still have control over your mind, your emotions, your actions. It tells them you are still in their game, even if you don't realize it. So, what should you do instead? You stop responding the way they want you to. You stop providing the emotional energy they feed on. Here's something important to understand: narcissists aren't self sufficient. They don't create their own stability, identity, or sense of worth. They take it from others. That's why they provoke, manipulate, and create conflicts where none should exist. It's all a way to keep you engaged because engagement equals power. To disarm a narcissist, you must remove that power, and it starts with something simple yet incredibly difficult: emotional detachment. I'm not talking about shutting off your feelings completely. That's unhealthy and unsustainable. I mean, learning to stay unaffected by their provocations, recognizing that attempts to guilt you, bait you, or pull you into arguments are only strategies to control you. This is where gray rocking comes in. Gray rocking is a technique where you make yourself as dull, unemotional, and disengaged as possible when dealing with a narcissist. They thrive on reactions: anger, frustration, sadness, even affection, because reactions show they are in control. But if you stop responding, if you refuse to give the dramatic emotional reactions they crave, they lose influence, they get bored and move on. It's not easy. Sitting with someone who is deliberately trying to provoke you and not reacting is hard. Hearing outrageous claims and refusing to defend yourself is hard. Watching them distort reality and smear your name and simply thinking, believe what you want, is hard, but it's necessary. Every time you engage, fight back, or try to prove yourself to someone who doesn't care about truth, you're feeding the very dynamic that drains you. This is psychological self-discipline. It's learning to say, I don't need this person's approval. I don't need to fix their false story. I don't need to earn their respect. When you reach that level of detachment, you become untouchable. A narcissist can't control what they can't provoke. The most powerful response to a narcissist isn't anger or confrontation, it's indifference. Once they realize they can't pull you into chaos anymore, they lose interest. That's when freedom begins. One of the biggest traps with narcissists is getting caught in the cycle of conflict they create. You may think that if you can just explain your perspective, prove your point, or get them to admit their behavior, everything will change. That's an illusion. A narcissist doesn't argue to resolve issues, they argue to dominate. Their goal isn't to find truth, reach understanding, or even coherently prove they're right. Their goal is to keep you entangled, emotionally invested, reacting. As long as you react, you're still in the game and they still have power. Think about how this works. You bring up a problem, something they did that hurt or disrespected you. A normal person might try to understand, even if they disagree. They would engage sincerely. But a narcissist, they deflect, they shift blame, They bring up something unrelated you did months ago. They twist your words. They make you out to be the problem. Soon, you're not discussing the original issue. You're defending yourself. And that's when they win. The moment you defend yourself, the conversation shifts from their behavior to proving your innocence. They've turned the tables. Now you're on trial, expending mental and emotional energy justifying yourself while they watch you exhaust yourself in a battle that was never fair. So, how do you stop this? How do you escape this psychological warfare? You disengage. Stop explaining. Stop justifying. Stop trying to win a debate designed to be unwinnable. That doesn't mean letting them walk over you or tolerate abuse. It doesn't mean staying silent in the face of injustice. It means refusing to participate in a rigged game. It means setting boundaries that are non-negotiable. Narcissists thrive on chaos, and they'll push hard to see if you really mean your boundaries. If you say, "I won't tolerate disrespect," they'll try to provoke you until you break your own rule. If they can get you to react, they win. They prove your boundaries are just words, so your job is to make sure they aren't. Your job is to follow through. If you say you'll leave the conversation, leave. If you won't tolerate disrespect, don't. If you won't explain yourself, stop explaining. When a narcissist sees their tactics no longer work, they lose interest. You're no longer an easy target. Standing firm in your boundaries means tolerating discomfort. It means resisting the urge to correct lies or defend yourself when narratives are twisted. It means accepting they may never see the truth because they don't want to. And that's okay. Your peace, dignity, and self-respect don't depend on their acknowledgement. They depend on your ability to walk away from pointless battles, refuse to be baited, and prioritize your well-being over winning an argument. The real victory isn't proving a narcissist wrong. It's proving to yourself that you no longer need their validation. A hard truth: narcissists won't respect boundaries unless enforced. Enforcement isn't repeating your limits, making empty threats, or hoping they develop self-awareness. It's action, it's consequences. Narcissists don't see boundaries as healthy limits. They see them as challenges, obstacles to overcome, tests of how far they can push. That's why half measures fail. If you set a boundary but don't enforce it, you teach them your words mean nothing. That if they push hard enough, create enough guilt, you'll cave. Once they see that, they exploit it relentlessly. Real enforcement means being ready to walk away from conversations that cross the line. It means following through on your stated rules. It means prioritizing your peace over winning their approval. Every time you step back and refuse to react, every time you detach emotionally, you reclaim power. You are no longer in the web they spin. You become untouchable. And slowly, over time, the narcissist loses interest, their control fades, and you finally regain freedom. This isn't about anger or confrontation. It's about indifference, discipline, and valuing yourself above all else. Once you master this, the cycle ends, the games stop, and you take back your life. It means stepping away from toxic situations, even if it brings short-term discomfort. It means understanding that you don't have to argue endlessly, negotiate constantly, or endlessly explain yourself. Sometimes you just have to act, and this is where many people struggle, because action is hard. It's uncomfortable. It has a price. Setting and maintaining boundaries means accepting that the narcissist will react negatively, and they will. They will accuse you of being selfish, cruel, or unreasonable. They will play the victim. They will lash out because they have no intention of respecting your limits. Their only goal is to make you feel guilty enough to give in. And this is where you must be strong enough to tolerate the discomfort of doing what's necessary. You have to accept that enforcing boundaries will make the narcissist escalate. If they used subtle manipulation before, they may start attacking you directly. If they used guilt trips, they might intensify their victim playing dramatically. If they relied on charm, they might switch to open hostility. This is called an extinction burst, a last desperate attempt to regain control when they realize their usual tactics aren't working. And it's exactly at this moment that most people fail, because the pressure can feel unbearable. The accusations, the guilt, the manipulation, all of it intensifies. And if you're unprepared, you'll give in. You may think, maybe I'm overreacting. Maybe I should just explain myself one more time. And the instant you do, the narcissist realizes they still have control over you. They'll pull back, act as if everything is fine for a while, and then slowly start pushing again. The only way to break this cycle is to stop giving them any reason to believe they can influence your decisions. You need to show, through action rather than words, that your boundaries are real, non negotiable, and that violating them has consequences. That could mean cutting contact. It could mean disengaging emotionally. It could mean refusing to react to provocations. Whatever the situation demands, consistency is key, because in the end, boundaries aren't about controlling the narcissist. They are beyond your control. They will always do what feeds their ego, their control, their sense of power. Boundaries are about controlling your own actions, deciding what you will and won't tolerate, choosing to step away from situations that drain you, prioritizing your own well-being over the illusion that you can change them. And when you finally do that, when you enforce boundaries with unwavering determination, something remarkable happens. The narcissist loses their hold over you. Their influence fades, and you begin reclaiming what was never theirs to control in the first place: your autonomy, your dignity, your peace. And that is a victory worth fighting for. One of the hardest lessons when dealing with a narcissist is realizing they will never give you closure. That apology you hope for, the moment when they finally admit the hurt they caused, it won't come. And the longer you wait for it, the longer you remain trapped in their psychological web. Because narcissists don't reflect on their actions like healthy people do. They don't lie awake at night wrestling with guilt, thinking about how to make things right. They don't replay the past and consider, maybe I went too far. Their mind doesn't work that way. Their focus is never the truth. It's always about maintaining control. And if that means rewriting history, making you the villain, or distorting reality so deeply that you start doubting yourself, that is exactly what they will do. If you aren't careful, you could spend years, even decades, trying to get from them what they are fundamentally incapable of giving. You may hold on to hope that if you phrase things perfectly or present your case convincingly, they'll finally see. They won't. Not because the truth isn't obvious, but because acknowledging it would mean giving up their power over you. So, you have a choice. You can keep chasing an apology that will never arrive. You can keep replaying past conversations in your mind, imagining different outcomes, trying to make sense of something that was never meant to make sense. Or you can decide that your healing does not depend on them. You can decide that closure is something you grant yourself. And that isn't simple, because humans are wired to seek resolution. Our minds crave order, a coherent story. When someone hurts us, betrays our trust, or inflicts lasting wounds, we want acknowledgement. We want justice. We want a tidy ending. But life is messy. And with a narcissist, the ending you hope for, where they finally take accountability, is a fantasy. So, what's the alternative? You reclaim your story. You stop waiting for them to set you free, and you set yourself free. That means accepting that some people will never understand the harm they caused and moving forward anyway. That means letting go of the belief that their validation is necessary for your healing. It's not, it never was. And that's where true power lies. Because as long as you wait for them to admit the truth, they still control you. As long as you hope for clarity from them, they still influence your emotions. But the moment you stop needing their validation, the moment you decide their opinion, their version of events, and their refusal to acknowledge reality are irrelevant, that is the moment you win. That is the moment they lose their hold. Here is the paradox. The less you need closure from them, the more control you gain over your own life. The moment you stop explaining, defending, and waiting, you become untouchable. A narcissist's greatest weapon is manipulating your desire for resolution. Take that away, and they have nothing. Healing from a narcissist isn't about making them see what they did. It's about seeing it yourself. It's about realizing that their lack of accountability doesn't reflect your worth. It reflects their brokenness. Closure doesn't come from them. It comes from you deciding you don't need their permission to move on. When you do this, when you truly let go, something extraordinary happens. The weight they placed on you begins to lift. The anger, confusion, and self-doubt start to fade. Not because what they did was acceptable, but because you've chosen not to let it define you. In the end, the best revenge against a narcissist isn't proving them wrong, making them apologize, or exposing them. It's thriving without them, living a life so full, independent, and free from their influence that they become nothing more than a distant memory, a lesson learned, a chapter closed. That, and only that, is true closure.